I'm a 31-year-old mother. I am. I started bartending at the tender age of 20 in Providence, Rhode Island. I was a bartender for many years. I've worn a lot of hats. I've had a lot of jobs. I love working in this city, which is increasingly expensive for really hardworking hospitality people to be in, to live in, to eat in, to exist in. A lot of people have spoken to the unpaid work, that it is like a negligible amount of time you spend. As you can see, I'm a kind of a slight woman. I've spent more hours than I care to think about heaving dozens upon dozens of cases of beer in cramped corners. I have cashed out waitresses. I've cleaned tables, mopped floors, carried mats covered in God knows what, weighing probably 100, 200 pounds by the end of the night between, all over the floor for $2.89 an hour. When you wear a particular hat of like a service bartender, you have these waitresses, and you're making them drinks. It's sort of this interconnected web where, say they only make $50 and they're supposed to give you 10, 15% as a tip out. You had better hope that they give you that. But when that is their only $50 for that shift, there's a continual feeling of pressure to crush each other, that everybody wants to cling to that wage just to make ends meet. I have worked in lots of places, and some are representative of some of the testimony we've heard, really ethical people that care about their workers. But there are just as many that do not. And it is in those instances where people are highly retaliatory, where if you speak your mind, if you are questioning of the status quo, you are punished for that sort of behavior. I think there are many, many great businesses here, but I think it would remove that pressure, that feeling to have a sense of security. Raising a child on $2.89 an hour, 2-3 jobs. I think that this would be a boon to the economy, to parents like myself, to people that love the city, want to live here, want to work here, and like their jobs.
Thank you. Any questions? Representative Giarrusso.
It wouldn't be right if I didn't ask a question.
I'm sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Looking forward to it.
It sounds to me like we might be speaking about different things, like something in fairness about you doing a job that's not part of your job description. That might be a time for another bill. I mean, I feel your pain. I mean, if I'm getting paid to be a waiter, I don't want to be scraping the floors for 3 hours at the end of the shift or carrying a 200-pound drenched mat.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I think there's a lot of issues that are very deeply interconnected, right, that some people have spoken to, it being a women's issue, a family issue, a labor issue, an ethical issue. But if you can get somebody to do that heavy lifting for $2.89 an hour, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I wouldn't expect anybody to do it, even if it was
$8. I think that's true, and I think that I've never had a payroll person call me to say, "Hey, we owe you money this week." I mean, never, not once. And also, there's an issue of shame. I mean, if you feel like you're not doing your job properly, if you have to contact somebody to say, "Hey, I didn't make enough tips," well, go make yourself some tips. And yeah, people do that, and you do get second jobs, and you hustle, and you work, and maybe you deal with some whatever happens, But I think that it would afford me a level of safety, that being able to show somebody who I want to maybe lease an apartment from, my 4 paychecks that show I work this many hours, that lets me participate in the economy. It lets me stay in the city that I love. It gives me a sense of security. There's no reason that I should work a job, work so many hours, and still, qualify for food assistance in the state of Rhode Island, which, as you've heard, is the reality for a lot of really hardworking people.
So I assume you live in Rhode Island and you're working in Rhode Island right now?
I am not working in the service industry at this time. I went back to school. It simply wasn't financially viable. I stopped working in 2013. But doesn't that say quite a bit that I would rather go into student loan debt, that is more financially viable for me than to pay somebody $10 an hour for care when I cannot even guarantee myself minimum wage working in an industry where therein lies all of my experience.
Right. See, what my point was speaking of two different things about the different working conditions, which really doesn't pertain to this bill. I don't think an extra.
I think that I agree. I think that it's hard, especially for somebody that has lived the experience, to divorce the $2.89 an hour from what it is like to live that. From what is okay. So you don't want to talk about childcare. That's not the task at hand, or wage theft, or that's not the task at hand, or harassment is not the task at hand. And maybe these things aren't causative. Maybe you can't ever really find what exactly it is that makes it hard for us, but there's a whole lot of correlation. I mean, far too much to ignore, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you.